I'm going to go ahead and kick off our introduction to drawing the facial features for this Portraits Made Simple workshop. So go ahead and get your blank page in front of you, and all you really need for this lesson is a pencil and an eraser. What I'm thinking I may do, depending on how well y'all can see this, is I might end up shifting to pen, but if y'all can see the pencil all right, then we're gonna be just fine. Let me rearrange this a little bit. So the first thing that you're gonna do is just go ahead and draw very lightly an oval on your page. It doesn't have to be perfect. As you can see, I'm going around a few different times, and it's so light, I'm sure you're noticing you can barely see it where I've drawn it, but it's more or less a little bit wider at the top and smaller at the bottom. I recommend you draw this lightly because it is going to change later. So we're going to totally redo the shape of the face later on. Next, you can go ahead and draw a line of symmetry. So of course that's the line going right down the middle of the face. Our faces are more or less symmetrical. Almost no one's face is perfectly symmetrical.
Denzel Washington is. They say that he has perfect features because of the symmetry.
Oh, Denzel Washington. That makes sense. They've done studies that show that the more symmetrical a person's face is, the more attractive they are.
Attractive. Yeah.
Okay, next, we're going to find the midpoint of the oval. And the way that I do this is I'll either use just my fingers to kind of measure, like, okay, how big is this? How big is that? If it's pretty much halfway, we're good. It doesn't have to be perfect. Trust me, nobody's face is like robotically proportional, following all of these rules. So it's totally fine if it's a little organic. Next, we're going to draw a line horizontally across that halfway point. So once you find your point, just mark that line in. And then we're going to continue finding the halfway point, this time between the middle of the face and the bottom half. So half of the bottom of the face, something like this. If you have to fudge it, if you feel like you're not perfectly centered, maybe better to do it a little higher than lower. Again, please don't get a ruler. It's so funny. Anytime I ever had an architect as a student, they would end up pulling out their rulers. And then once I told that to an architect friend I was giving a class to, and he's like, oh, how dare you say that? That's just ridiculous. And then 5 steps later, I was like, and then you put this on here. He's like, hold on, I need my ruler. I was like, aha, I got you. So true. So next, we're going to do the same thing. Find the halfway point between this bottom line we've drawn and the bottom of the chin. So we've divided it in half, in quarters, and now in half again. So we've got 3 main lines on this face we're drawing. Also, still drawing relatively lightly so that we can, that these guidelines don't stand out so much. And that's something I've always thought it's too bad people don't get to see the process that artists go through, because almost everyone who's an artist drawing a face is going to start with some guidelines, but until you see them do these proportions and mark in as they do the process, then you just have this idea that artists like instantly draw things perfectly. That's just not how it is. I went ahead and labeled this first line. Believe it or not, this is the eye line. Underneath that, we have the nose line.
Something happened to your voice. Say that again.
Thank you. The eye line is the line halfway across the skull. Next is the nose line. Go ahead and label that. And at the very bottom, we have the mouth. This alone is one of the most important things to take away from this whole features proportions lesson, because the number one mistake that artists make when they're getting started is we try and draw the eyes way too high up. And that's because we're not drawing the whole head from the top of the skull to the bottom of the chin. Whenever we draw a face, we tend to try and draw from the top of the forehead, and we cut off the top of the head. There are a lot of reasons for that we won't go into, but the most important thing you can take away from this class is when you're drawing anybody, you're going to find the halfway point, and you'll see that that is where the eyes are located on the face. So halfway, pretty crazy. So let's go ahead and start placing our features. We're only going to place them first. Yes, Gail.
I'm
question.
sorry, can you hear me?
No problem. Yeah.
Okay. I know when I sculpt, it's important not just to say the eye. We're going like sort of in the center of the pupil, and in certain locations, the same thing with the nose. Are you talking about the tip of the nose? Are you talking about which part of the nose? And the same thing with the mouth. Is it the very center? You know, which?
That's what we're about to
specific?
dive into.
Oh,
So
okay, sorry.
these are the first lines. No worries. Great questions. And one thing I will say is that it's one of the things that just makes me love drawing portraits is there are exceptions to these rules. So even though I'm going to tell you that this is how it is, whenever you're drawing a face, pay attention to how the person you're drawing might be a little bit different, because there are absolutely variations. But great question. So for the eye, generally it's going to be the corner of the eye, so through the sort of tear duct that line is cutting through. But for
the inner corner of the eye.
Let me show you exactly how to do it first, and then, because this is a little bit tricky, and then you can see how you're going to lay it out on your page. So first, we want to make sure that our eyes end up being symmetrical. And one of the mistakes people tend to make is they'll start to draw one eye and get it really far along before they work on the other one. I'm going to encourage you to do the placement for your eyes before you finish one eye, so that everything is as symmetrical as possible. So what the go-to division is that the entire face, and this is something that I've seen a lot of variation in, so take it with a grain of salt. The entire face is supposedly 5 eyes in length. So let me show you what that's going to look like. You're basically, the only reason I really mention that is because, oh, go ahead, Linda.
In width? No, in height.
No, in width.
In width.
Yeah, let me show you first. So this is one eye, and here's the real magic of this particular proportion. The distance between the eyes, and this is almost always pretty spot on, the distance between the eyes is the same as the width of the eye itself. So once you, in this case, eyeball, the width of the distance between the eyes, you're going to use that same measurement to find how wide the eyes should be. So let's see, I'm going to measure that. I made this eye a little too small. Let me make it a little larger. So I'm trying to get this distance to match this distance. So this is where the eye is going to be. And then I want that same measurement on this side of the eye. Now, to check my work and to know whether or not this is going to turn out accurately, I want to see that this same measurement, so same, is more or less the same from the outside of the eye to the outside of the face. So my face is too wide. I'm just going to reshape the entire face rather than changing the shape of the eyes. So this is where we get that 5 links measurement. So we have 1 eye, 2 eyes, 3 eyes, 4 eyes, 5 eyes. 5 eyes in width, more or less, from side to side. But the place where we place the eyes is, of course, these two kind of round areas right here. And for now, I'm extremely lightly just drawing sort of a largish circle here. But we're gonna come back and do the refined eye in a little bit. This is almost gonna look like a robot the way that we're gonna set the features in right now. And then we'll be able to really get it detailed. Okay. So does anybody want a little guidance with your face? Do you want to hold your picture up and I can check and see how it's going, or are you feeling like you're all good so far?
I'm fine.
Okay,
I am.
great. So next, let's place where the nose is going to go. Oh, yes, Gail?
Are we supposed to, or are we not supposed to use a ruler for this? Are we learning just to visually estimate it? Are we, at the beginning, should we use something to double check our measurements?
Now, Gail, are you an architect?
No, I'm sculpting. But I use this.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
No. But I am a mathematician by
Is
training.
anybody else, right?
OCD reigns.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I have so much respect for my mathematicians, engineers, and architects who come to this class or any art class, because it is so out of your comfort zone, that left side of the brain jumping into the right. So my encouragement would be to start to learn to go for it, you know, you will over time get better at sighting is the term that we could use. Mm-hmm. You probably have noticed I'm using my pencil for measurements, and that is why you tend to see artists like holding their pencils up, looking like crazy people, or brushes. So my recommendation would be that if it physically pains you, like we were saying, and you're just being driven crazy, please use a ruler. But very few people have ruler-sized faces. And one difference that I tend to notice is that this outer length often is smaller. So it just depends on the person. Great question. Okay. So placing the nose, here's another one where you might be tempted to have a ruler. We're going to go ahead and go from the tear duct, the inside corner of the eye. The outside of the nose is generally vertically aligned. So it's going to be a straight drop vertically to your nose line. So what I usually do is I'll start with a little kind of dashed line. So y'all can see where that is there. Now we've got a little rectangle in the middle of the face. I'm just going to have you leave that there for now. And I want to point out, I've drawn myself so much that I know me and my face, this proportion doesn't work for me. My nostrils are a little wider. So whenever I practice this, it's like, you know, if I was going to get plastic surgery, that's how they would fix me. But that is a general go-to. And that is a tip for those of you who might be a little further along on how to create a likeness. Is once you know these rules, then you're looking at any individual to see how they're different. So if you want to draw me, you would say, okay, well, when I'm drawing Jessica, I need to make sure I make her nostrils a little bit wider. And that's how you would end up with a Jessica face and not a random clone, looks like the exact proportions drawing. So next, let's do the same thing to place the lips, and then we're going to actually start drawing. So what you're going to do is you're going to find the middle of the eye, and in general, from the middle of the eye, we have a direct vertical drop to the outside of the lips. So middle of the eye, going straight down. And now we've got this kind of C3PO effect. Okay, so it's still very light, we're about to move into starting to draw darker lines because this is, again, just the guideline. Now we're going to get into creating the face, so the fun part. Let's start by framing the face by drawing the eyebrows, and then we'll draw the eyes after that. One thing you might notice if you actually feel your own facial structure is that your eyebrows sit exactly on the top of this orbital socket. So this is that hole inside of our skull where the eyeballs sit, and that's going to be really useful later on whenever we're thinking about shadows, because the eyes, because they're in depth, catch a little more shadow. So if you think about where that is going to go, if you draw a big circle around the eyes, and the circle of your orbital socket is much, well, not much, but it is larger than the circle of the eye itself. So the eyebrows and just this shaded area are going to be a little bit larger than super duper close to the opening of the eye. So we're going to frame the face. I'm going to start by drawing an arch that goes up and out and then curves back down. That's basically showing, we talked about the planes of the face, the large flat areas that catch different amounts of light. We have our flat part of our forehead, and then we have this curving back temple that is going back into depth, and that's generally where the curve of the eyebrow starts. So once I set those in place, I'm going to draw the hairs of the eyebrow above that line, and I start with some sort of short vertical lines and then curve them going away from the middle of the face. And I don't know if y'all have seen the new trend. We've gone all the way back to, I guess, the 80s, and now big bushy eyebrows are back in fashion. So you can make them nice and luxurious, thick eyebrows. And the thing you don't want to do is this kind of Bart Simpson hair kind of line, even if it's really squished together. That is something people sometimes think, oh, let me just really quickly scribble my eyebrows in. But we notice that line quality. It does make a difference. So if you can, try not to do that. Next, let's go ahead and we're going to draw, this is going to be a teeny tiny line. And it's the tear duct itself. So if you are looking at my face, you can kind of see that there's the pink area, and then there's the white circle of the eye. I think of that as almost like a little tip of a lemon, just this tiny little, almost like a letter C shape that's facing outward away from the other letter C. Hopefully y'all can see that. It's pretty darn tiny.
Say that again.
So let me get this closer to you. It's almost like two teeny tiny letter C's that are facing away from each other. Going away from the center of the face. Yes, Gail.
I can't get my voice on.
Sorry,
Jessica? Jessica?
Yeah.
Is there any relationship of that tear duct to the inside eyebrow, start of the eyebrow?
Definitely depends on the person, especially since we pluck our eyebrows. In general, the eyebrow is going to go inward a little bit more. So the eyebrow should, I mean, here it's negligible, like maybe a few millimeters, but there is more eyebrow on the inside than there is tear duct. So
Okay.
basically inward diagonal. Okay. So this is a little tricky. You'll also notice I'm drawing both eyes at the same time. We're not doing one all at once. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, see even closer for y'all, draw the inner opening of the eye. This is like the part of the eye where the eyelashes grow out from. You're going to curve a line that goes from the top of the little letter C. It's going to go up and out probably smaller than you think, and then curve back down. The bottom line tends to be a little bit flatter. So it's much more of an almond shape than a big wide circle shape. And often we tend to think that the eyes are going to be big and round. I don't know if any of y'all have seen that movie Big Eyes, but it's that tendency we have to want to make the eyes bigger. And it's
Yours
partly,
are really thin almonds.
yeah, they are. She's going to end up having a little bit more of a bedroom eyes kind of look, but that's okay. It's still going to look, you'll be surprised how realistic she'll end up being. And I'm saving room, this is important, I'm saving room for the upper eyelid crease. So now I have these two kind of almond or lemon shapes for the opening of the eye. This is huge. This line hovers just above the opening of the eye. It goes not in like a curving circle shape, but almost like a diagonal up, kind of curving flat and then curving back down. And of course, there are cultural differences. So people who have hooded eyes or they don't have that eyelid crease, of course, like Asian faces, you're not going to see this so much. But this is a really important line that most of us have. You can see my upper eyelid crease here. And these tiny details make a huge difference in how we perceive an eye and whether or not we think that it's a good drawing of an eye or not believable at all drawing of an eye. This is still looking kind of ghost-like. Let's go ahead and add the actual pupils. So an interesting thing about the pupils is we almost never see them like actually the whole circle of the iris and inside of the eye. You have to be like really shocked or horrified or on some kind of crazy drugs for that to happen. So what we tend to see is actually maybe a 3/4 full circle, or almost like I tend to like to place the bottom of the eye, the iris, where I can see the bottom of it, but not so much the top. And I want to pay attention to the whites of the eye. The whites of the eye are my guide to making sure I don't have the pupils too big. Often we try and make really large pupils or irises, but in reality, we see quite a bit of the whites of the eye. So you can kind of just see from my example.
Did you do the bottom? Did you do the bottom lid already? I mean, the bottom line
No, I
already?
haven't done the bottom. So Naomi, I'm guessing you're talking about that ridge, the little tiny line.
So not there yet. Okay.
Yeah, not there yet. But
Okay.
that's a great thing to mention because you can put that in depending on your eye. So yeah.
We just did the almond shape at the top, not the bottom. We didn't do like whole almond yet. Just the top of the almond shape. Okay. I get you.
Okay. So one thing that's going to make these eyes look amazing is if we save a piece of the drawing. I like to just kind of put in a little shape. It could be a triangle. It could be a square. I'm going to save the white of the eye. So you can see I put just a little triangle in one corner of the iris. And that's going to be the glare of a light hitting this person's face. And our eyes, of course, are very liquidy, so they reflect a shape of a light back, and it creates a texture of liquid eye. What is going to make this look amazing is then coming back and behind your triangle, adding the circle of the pupil. And we can darken that as dark as your pencil will go.
Say that again. Repeat that.
The pupil behind the, can you hear me okay? Yeah. So we add the circle, shoot, sorry, I know my internet is not being the best right now. We'll say that one more time. We add the circle of the pupil, the black circle of the pupil behind that little white triangle so that we see that the pupil is there centered in the middle of the iris, and that white little triangle that we drew in already is showing as if it's a reflection.
So are those sitting on top of the line, or did I miss something?
For you. This is where mine is at right now. So I didn't think much about.
Oh, I think this one.
Yeah, I don't know that it matters so much if the pupil is on the line exactly or not, because of course we can move our eyes around, so no rule there. Here you go, Naomi. Hopefully that's helping. Now, one thing you can do, this is a purely stylistic decision, is add a shadow, or you could do this, of course, in color, or make it totally dark if you want the person to have brown eyes or black eyes. Would be to color in the iris around that, give the person a look of having color. We lost Naomi. I hope she's able to hear us anyway. Okay. So far we've got kind of a unisex view of some eyes here. What we can do if we want to make them more feminine is add eyeliner and eyelashes. Now, even if it's a male eye, you probably would want to add just a very few eyelashes, maybe a suggestion. And this is the type of line that I draw. If you can see that, it's sort of like a U open curve shape. Not necessarily sticking out from the corner of the eye like this. Don't do that. But more as if it's flat along the eye. If you want to make this face more feminine, which I'm going to make her a girl, I'm going to thicken the upper eyelid line where the eyelashes grow from. So it's that line above the opening of the eye, directly above it, not the upper eyelid crease. Make that line nice and thick, maybe even a little bit on the bottom. And this is another opportunity to sort of reshape the eyes as needed. So if you want to try and get your eyes more symmetrical, this is an opportunity. She's already starting to look more like a she. And then if you want to make her really feminine, just a few eyelashes. There are more eyelashes on the outer curve of the eye and fewer on the lower eyelid. And Naomi reminded me there is a tiny little line. It's a ridge, the ridge line of the lower eyelid. When you add this, it really helps your eyes look even more realistic. And let me show you what that looks like. Just really close. I'm going to add a few more little eyelashes here. So now she's been feminized. So this is the lower eyelid ridge. If you look at your own eyes in a mirror, you'll notice that you can see that sort of rim of the skin of the lower eyelid. And it's from the outside of that our eyelashes grow from. I've darkened the outer rim of the eye opening line and added some eyelashes. I also went ahead and you might notice I added a tiny little shadow here on the interior tear duct just to show that it's not part of that circular opening of the actual eyeball. So we've got some pretty detailed eyes and nothing else. But fortunately, the eyes are the trickiest part. From here, we're gonna knock out the rest of the face. But some takeaways from this that I hope you remember are to work on both of the eyes at the same time instead of drawing one and then the other all at once. Okay, placing the nose. So Gail asked a great question earlier. Where is the nose gonna go? And it's going to sit on top of the nose line. And what I like to do is draw the absolute simplest nose ever. Let me show you how I do it. What I'll do is I will draw two kind of open parentheses on the outside of the nose. So you can see these are pretty obtuse angles or very wide curve. And I'm staying inside of the line that drops directly down from the tear duct. So it's inside and on top of that line. And then from here, trying to stay as symmetrical as possible, what I draw are, you can think of them as sort of paisley shapes, or I like to just stick with my grammar theme here and think of them as apostrophes or commas. What you don't want are two circles like a little pig nose. So I place those so that they don't touch the outside of the eye, the outside of the nose, because we have a ridge of skin that wraps around our nostril. And you end up with a believable looking nose in just 4 lines. Let me get that closer for you. Pretty believable. Now, of course, noses are all about shading. So to really make this extra realistic, we would consider the shading where the light is hitting this face. We're not going to get into shading tonight. We're just worried about where to place the features, the complete basics of drawing these features. I probably got a little more in depth on the eyes than I needed to, but you got to have some good looking eyes. This is the type of shape that I use to create the nostrils. One thing that's interesting is I've noticed if I switch the commas so that they have the round part closer together, it actually still works. Like, some people just have noses that look like that. And there are so many kinds of faces. Obviously, we're just drawing an sort of idealized face, but the more you look at faces, the more fascinated you'll probably end up being. Okay, let's go ahead and draw our lips. Now, the lips are going to also be seated on top of the mouth line. So what I like to do is I'll sort of just keep in mind, you don't have to draw anything, but consider this thing. This is called our philtrum. It took me a while to remember that word, but it's that tiny little dent in the middle of your mouth that separates your nose and your mouth. So it's that upper lip dent that we all have. And you want to make sure that you're going to have room for that so that you're considering that you don't want the mouth up too high or down too low. So I tend to draw just a teeny tiny little curve underneath the nose, keeping enough space for the philtrum. If you're drawing an actual person, then you're going to really look to see, like, what does that negative space, that empty area look like? Is it a long upper lip, a short upper lip? And if it's from imagination, this idealized face, then it's a little higher than halfway up. So here I'm actually going to start with the line that separates the two lips next. I'm just going to leave that little philtrum there. And I draw similarly another kind of curved line underneath that philtrum line with, in this case, a quarter down, I don't know. And there's no right or wrong here. Everybody's lips are different. There are people with thick upper lips, thin upper lips. So as long as it looks interesting to you, and the more you play around with portraits, the more you'll find that these tiny little differences you make create a whole different sort of personality of person. And that's how I got addicted to drawing portraits, is just seeing all those fascinating differences. So you can see I've just drawn in the lines separating the lips. And what I didn't want to do, yes, scale.
Sorry.
Mhm.
What's the relationship between what you're just putting in there and the line we originally drew, that the line for the mouth? The
Okay.
line for the mouth is lower than what you've drawn as far as I can see. Is
Yes,
that right?
so we're going to sit the whole mouth on top of that mouth line. So I'm starting from the top, but the bottom lip is going to sit on top of that mouth line.
That's the end of the mouth is what you're
Mhm.
saying. I mean, the very bottom tip, not
More
the
or
middle,
less.
not the opening of the mouth, but
Not
including the lower lip.
with lots of exceptions. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
sort of. Why not? Yeah. So whenever you're drawing this line, if you want to add a little personality to your person, you can see this. To me, this line reminds me of like a kid drawing of a seagull over a horizon, like seascape. So another way to refer to it is sort of a bow-shaped line, kind of the curve of a bow where they string the bow part. And what it's doing is it's showing the curve of the shape of the mouth, so it doesn't look tight. Like for a person to have a perfectly straight line separating their two lips, they would look very stern and strict. So unless you're specifically going for that look, you're going to want a more curving lip line. Now here's where it's going to get interesting. For the upper lip, all I want you to do is gently shade a lip sort of shape. And what I'm doing is I'm almost overemphasizing that I just want you to shade this. Let me show you exactly what that looks like. Because I don't want you to draw cartoon lips that have a big, heavy outline, like lip liner. So you'll notice also that the upper shape here doesn't go all the way out to the end of the mouth line. For some people who have very full lips, you might see that, but often the opening of the lips goes out wider than the actual shape of the upper lip. And for the bottom lip, I, as you can see right on that line, I already drew her kind of curve of the lower lip. What I'll often do is I'll just add a tiny bit of shading here in the bottom part of the lip and sort of smudge it in. And again, unless somebody's wearing lipstick, often the color of the lip tends to be close to the skin color of the skin around the lip. So I'm not seeing a intense, dark, a hard edge line like a cartoon of, you know, this kind of idea of a lip line. So that's the left side of the brain trying to draw a mouth instead of right side, really looking to see what's there. To add a little bit more extra detail, what you might try is you could add a little bit more shadow at the top of the lip, maybe get a bit more definition. And lips tend to have a sort of line, tiny little texture. You could add a few kind of quickly drawn little dashes here to give it a little bit more of a lip texture. And often you'll see a little bit more shading as the upper lip gets closer to the opening of the mouth line. So that might help that. So that is a quick and dirty introduction to the features and, more importantly, how they're placed inside of the face. So we're getting toward the end of our call, so we're going to zoom through this as quickly as possible, stay respectful of y'all's time, but you might find that the shape of the face that you originally drew might need some reworking. Very normal if you feel like you need to make the overall shape of the face larger or smaller at this point. So using your own kind of judgment on how things look, I'm going to start by defining the chin. So I'm going to draw a dark line for where the chin's going to start. I'm pretty much keeping things where I originally drew them in, but instead of just a curving oval, I'm going to have a bit more angularity in her jawline especially. So I've got this kind of sharper chin, and this is going to shift from, instead of being a very open angle at the bottom of the jawline, you can see how this is kind of a curving open angle here. Suddenly it's going to jump upward and outward to find the cheekbones. So suddenly it's a much more vertical diagonal. And that way she's got some face. While we're up here, I just want to mention that the ears go from the top of the eye line to the bottom of the nose line. It's a really great proportion to know. And I tend to draw simple ears. So ears, the top of the ear is on that same horizontal axis as the eye line. Bottom of the nose is where the ears will end. And to make them look a little realistic, just a little dash going away from the ear kind of gives a sense of a fold of the ear going around there. You might draw something like a little scoop on the inside. Ears are pretty crazy. We'll talk about those later on. But heck, if you want to give her some earrings, this is where we're going to really get into the fun bit of decorating. I'm going to leave the top of her head for now so that we can give her some hair. But before we do the hair, let's make sure she's got a neck. So the neck is pretty close to the outside of the jawline. I used to always try and draw really skinny necks because I thought that would make people look more elegant, but it just makes them look unrealistic. So
It looks like it's the outside of the eye.
Huh, that's interesting. It could be. I've never heard that stated as a proportion, but if you find that to work, then definitely check it out. Seems like it works on my face, but who knows? Great. So for hair, do y'all have any votes for long or short?
Short.
Short. Okay. So we'll do kind of Judith hair.
Okay.
Great. So, my Botticelli model. So one thing before I do the hair is let's double check that the top of the head is in the right place. Sometimes our lines tend to drift throughout the drawing process. So from the halfway point from the chin to the eye, I want to double check, is the top of my head still in the right place? No, she's a cone head. So somehow my head got too tall, so I'm going to draw a quick line to show the top of her head's just going to be right here. But when I draw the hair, there will be volume, so more volume to the top of the hair. I tend to start by finding the the part line. So we're going to have a part off to the side, and this is going to be fun, curly hair. The key to drawing hair is never draw each teeny tiny little strand all one at a time. It makes the hair look really stringy. Instead, I'm going to start with some overall big shapes of what the hair is going to look like. So this is really pretty random, kind of curly hair. But I started with the overall big shape of what the hair looks like. You might come back at this point and erase the shape of the head underneath the hairline. And then the hair tends to end up being darker toward the part. And with curly hair, like Judith's, you can just draw some sort of general texture, squiggles. Really what I would do if I wanted this to look awesome is I would come in and really pay attention to the shading But for tonight, I'm going to keep it super simple. So she's more like platinum blonde. And that, maybe smudge it a little bit so those lines aren't so terrible. That is the face. Da 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 da.
Cute.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see how these turn out. It's always a little different, starting to kind of look like the same. So, time for the big reveal. I would love if you're definitely not required to, but if anyone would like to show off your drawing, I can give you a little bit of feedback. All right, I'm going to start with Judith. I just saw yours first. Oop, a little higher, Judith. Very nice. Oh my gosh, that reminds me of my friend back in San Miguel. So my only comment would be probably you could shrink the eyes a little bit next time, but I think there is somebody out there that looks a lot like that, and she's so cute. That's really nice. Naomi, let's see. Wow, Naomi, that's beautiful.
Lovely.
Yeah, really nice shading around the lips. And
I like the hair.
yeah, great job. Again, you could add a little bit or shrink the eyes a little bit. But I'd say, yeah, success. And I can't wait to get you shading things too. That's going to be great. All right, let's see. Gail. Ooh, very nice, Gail. She's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Really
really
nice.
excellent work around the eyes, and perhaps the nose line might have ended up a little bit too low, but
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
something you can keep feeling out. It's my fault because I told you not to use a ruler. But you know what? That definitely looks like someone who has just a slightly longer nose. You know, there's somebody out there. That's what they look
But
like.
it does look long, you're right.
Yeah, very nice work.
Okay, thank you.
Very nice.
And
That's the best thing I've
Linda.
ever drawn in my life.
What? Oh my gosh, that's so great to hear.
Oh, I love that. It's amazing.
Yay. Just wait till the end of the month. So exciting. Linda.
My nose ended up way too long, and I just have been trying to shorten it, and it's and the mouth ended up on her chin. So somehow
Yep.
I got off of the lines.
Well, yeah, and that's the importance of those very first few measurements ending up right.
Yeah.
I think from when I'm looking at your page, you did the same thing as Gail, just that initial line where you drew the nose in was probably just too low, and that threw everything off. But you know, it reminds me of a horse.
Way off.
That's a inside joke because Linda is an equestrian artist, so she's constantly drawing.
So it ends up looking more like a horse person.
So you got a little bit of an equestrian vibe. And Paula, I hope you're able to add your drawing to our course later on. And yeah, success, everyone. I think that was fabulous. And, you know, way to go adding the shading and making each face your own. So I'm seeing growth. Judith, I don't know if you remember your drawing of this lesson from the portraiture class, but that is like a big improvement.
Yeah, much better.
So great. Well, I'm so proud of you all. So this can be the very first post that you add to the group for drawing number 1, or if you want to go through these steps again and sort of fix whatever you feel like you could have improved, then I'm going to be posting. I'm kind of torn because I've got this particular video replay, but I also have another video that is the same lesson. I might end up just posting them both so you can see which one looks like better quality for you. Same exact lesson, slightly different faces, so slightly different ways of me explaining things. So you can follow through that same lesson and post this or post a new one.
I just found my first one.
Oh,
So
yeah?
This is today.
Let me spotlight this. Yeah.
And this is July 16.
Oh, wow.
They're very
That's
similar.
Yeah, there are some interesting
Very
connections.
similar.
Yeah. I notice you tend to have a more circular face.
Yeah. And
So,
the eyes are a little too big.
mm-hmm. That's so cool, though. I love keeping a sketchbook for just that reason. Alrighty, so
What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to redo this same exercise 5 times during this week?
no. So very good question. I'm glad I can clarify that. So by tomorrow, I'm going to post 1 or 2 videos with this same lesson again for anyone who wasn't on the call. You can do it again, or you can just be happy knowing you've already got it out of the way. Every day for the next 4 days, I'm going to post a new video on one specifically only about the eyes, one all
Awesome.
about the nose, one all about the lips. And then that final day, I think I'm just going to post a picture for you to work from with some guidance about, if you want to draw from a mirror or something in that, it would also be great.
Do you want us to post anything that we've drawn do you want us to post what we've drawn each day, or just hold off on that? What are we supposed to do?
It's excellent if you are able to post every day when you draw immediately. Such a good habit to get into. If you find that it doesn't work with your schedule, then as long as you post all of the drawings over the week, we just love to see them. That really helps me be able to give you feedback.
Another stupid question. How do we post these pictures we've just drawn?
I'm so glad you asked. So I'm going to hang on the call now for anyone who would like a guided tour and show you exactly how to do that, Gail. And everyone else,
Do you want us to post what we did in class?
I would love you to. Yes, that would be great. So that's your first drawing assignment.
Okay. Have a good week, everyone.
Have a great week.
Happy
See you
drawing.
in the course.
Bye.
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 Alrighty.
Bye.
See you, Naomi. See you
All
next
right,
Tuesday.
I'm here.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and show you. Here we are at our course website. Just scooch that over there. And what you're going to look for, we're going to go to the home page, which I get to just by clicking this little logo in the top corner. You can always go right back to the main page.
Okay.
And okie dokie. So let's see. Can you tell me, Gail, do you have the app downloaded, or are you working only from your computer?
No, I downloaded Zoom and also Mighty something or other.
Great. Okay. Mighty Networks. Excellent.
Right.
Let me see if I've got my...
I think I'm also using my cell phone at the same time. I just downloaded, I printed the Portraits Made Simple guide from Mighty Media.
From Mighty Media. Great. Okay. So there are 2 ways to upload. One, of course, from your phone and one from the computer. So let me show you the computer first, and then I'll go grab my phone. It's just 2 steps away. So when you're here to add anything, you're going to see your little picture if you've added a picture, or else this is just your place to add new content.
Okay.
And this plus sign, if you click that, will pop up with all these different options. And the main one you're going to worry about is a photo. Now, this is why I prefer posting on my phone, because when you post with your phone, then you don't have to transfer to the computer. I can just take a picture, right?
So I'm going to photograph what's right in front of me now.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Because if I was going to add a picture from my computer, I would pick out the picture for now. I'm just going to pick any random picture.
Okay.
But just so you can see this, business partner, I would add a topic, this little button here. I would say portraits. So portraits is our theme for the month. And then underneath, I could say whatever.
I could say day one. I could say day one
to
classwork.
yes,
Okay.
exactly. And it's helpful if you say like I had trouble with this, or this other thing was easy. Anything that you'd like some feedback on,
Okay.
I'm going to be able to comment directly back. And
Excellent.
what else is there to say about that? Yeah, and then you just click post down at the bottom, and you're all set. So
Okay, so where will I find, every day you're going to send an email with a link to that day's message or instructions what to do?
So I think so. I think I will go ahead and add the email. I hadn't thought through that part yet. So what I was planning to do is I will come in and add the video for the lesson here on the main page, and I'm going to label it portraits. So anytime you're looking for anything that has to do with portraiture, Gail, you can go over to the sidebar and click topics. And when you go to topics, the newest topic we have, so it's down at the bottom, is portraits. And here you're going to see everything that anybody tags. So you'll see your work, everybody else's work, and you'll see my lessons. Another way to access everything is in this featured section. So whenever you log in, it's going to show you the featured articles, and I'll be adding the portraits videos to featured. So you can find them up here and scroll through. And that's actually, if you go back, you can see all of the drawing challenges we've done for the past several months. And yeah. So let me show
under here, under the bottom, going down, you'll see what we've posted down here.
Exactly.
Is what we've posted. Up at the top under featured is what your instructions are for that day. And,
well, anytime I add the instructions, they also pop up in the feed. So as soon as something is posted, it ends up here in the main window. And also if somebody comments on anything, so if I went and I commented on this drawing by Diane, it would suddenly go to the top of the list. So any new activity goes to the top.
Okay, I'm sure I'll figure it out.
And I'm going to be sending continued emails that guide you through how to just getting familiar with the whole thing, because I know it's a lot. It's a very complex course website.
I'm sure by the third day it'll seem much more understandable.
Great.
But I'm willing to work on it. Jessica, I think this is a wonderful opportunity, and this is the beginning, and I look forward to working on this. This is something. My goal is to take a sketch. I'm leaving for Europe at the beginning of February, and I want to, as I mentioned in my note, I want to be able to create a different kind of an remembrance of the experience.
Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic. And when you scroll through the feed, you might also find Kathy. She has the exact same goal. She just got back from a trip. Here she is, Kathy Simaldi. She just got back from a trip from Vienna, and that is exactly what she did. So you might check out her stuff and see some inspiration.
And what is she using? What is her medium? What is that medium?
She's using watercolor pencils.
Watercolor pencil, okay.
Pen. So you apply it like a colored pencil, and then you come back afterward and add water, and it becomes watercolor pencils. Yeah.
All right, I never even heard of that. Okay, excellent. And then pen, just like a sharp, not a Sharpie, a thin pen.
Yeah, it looks like she's using like a could be a Micron is a popular brand.
Right. Okay. Wonderful. That would be my amazing thing if I could get to that point. But
awesome.
So in other words, that class, that picture you showed me of Vienna, was that part of urban drawing class?
So great question. That was just her sharing her artwork, just because. So You're always welcome to sketch and draw and share with us for some feedback. There's, as you can tell, there's very loose boundaries and rules around here.
Okay.
So I'm always happy to see your artwork and cheer you on, whether or not it has to do with our workshop of the month.
Thank you. But so in other words, when there are topics, or when you went to the featured area, the one after portraits was urban landscape.
Yes. So if I come back here.
Is there anything I could see about it, or have to enroll in the class first?
Great question. So you might be interested in both urban sketching and architecture and environments. And if you go to urban sketching, you might have to sort of sort through, like, as you can see, this is everything everybody's posted about urban sketching.
Okay.
If you see this little triangle, that means it's a video. So you will see, now urban sketching was a little different. That month, I didn't go really in depth. What we did is, if you see this image,
right.
Yeah, that's the month-long drawing challenge. But what I would recommend for you is actually going to, so you don't have to go through all this. You could also go to this section that says Discovery. And you'll be able to sort of look around at, there's the topics again. That's another way to find the topics.
Okay.
But I think what you would like are the architecture and environment posts. So here are all of the videos and the assignments for architecture and environment. So if you're doing urban sketching, this was what we did to kind of prepare ourselves for the urban sketching.
Okay.
So just have fun, explore around.
I'll figure it out. I thank you for taking the extra time. I'm sure it's, I hope I won't disturb the class with all my questions, but
not at all.
I appreciate your help, and I'm looking forward to continuing with you, because I find this method is very satisfying.
Wonderful. I'm so glad to hear. Well, glad to have you, Gail. Have a wonderful rest of your evening.
You too. Thank you again.
Sure thing. Adios.
Bye-bye.